All right. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am great, thank you.
Yes, great to meet you. Let's see here. Can hear me just fine?
I can.
Okay, perfect, perfect. No echoes in the background or anything for you? Okay,
Sounds
perfect,
good.
perfect. Take your mind into the wonderful world of physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual wellness. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kinetic Hour. Conversations with you and guests with your host, Kenan Wesley Mason. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Kinetic Hour. I am your host, Kenan Wesley Mason. Welcome one, welcome all. Thank you all for tuning in to another edition as we are streaming live once again, streaming live on Instagram, streaming live on Facebook, and streaming live on LinkedIn. So, welcome to all three platforms. As usual, go to my YouTube channels. There's always two. The first is right here, the Kinetic Hour, and that is once again KENNETIC, the Kinetic Hour, and my other YouTube channel, Kinetic Fit and Wellness Info. Kinetic Fit and Wellness Info for everything health related, physical health, mental health, everything in between. And go to my Rumble channel as well at the Kinetic Hour. Make sure you subscribe, click the notifications, tell everyone that you know to subscribe, and tell everybody to leave comments regarding the comments. And there's a thousand podcasts that you can listen to. So thank you all for tuning in to the Kinetic Hour. And I have a guest, as you can see, my guest today. She's an integrative well-being therapist and a master social worker from Loyola University. Unassuming, reassuring, and seemingly without any sense of ego, she's able to put anyone and everything at ease. She's an asset to any corporate setting, and with ease, she's able to untangle the issues at hand and move right along into helping facilitate a solution based platform for creative, productive, good feeling collaboration and change. She can most often be seen working with adults, teens, children, and couples, as well with small groups. She never positions herself as an expert on anything and is always reminding you that it is you who knows best for yourself, always. She's also the co author of The Everlasting or The Ever Loving Essence of You. Create a long term connected relationship with yourself. So let's welcome to the Kinetic Hour, Jamie Lerner. Jamie, thank you for
Thank
coming
you
to the
for
Kinetic
inviting
Hour.
me.
Welcome. Um, I have a whole lot of stuff here to ask you. I mean, I went to your website and you have so many things there. The first thing, just so the audience can know who you are, just give us some background on how you got started and um, what got you started and what led you down this path into this field of profession.
Okay. So I got my MSW. I started doing some psychotherapy work. I had a private practice, and I realized very quickly that I did not feel like I was assisting people by asking them to continually look back when I assumed that they were there because they were wanting to move forward. So I I stuck with it for a little while until it just came to me that this was just not serving myself or others. I gave that practice up. I studied and traveled, and now I do something really different, which is assisting people and assisting themselves to
Hmm.
getting from where they are to where they want to be. And that is a very different approach to helping people. But I find that it's really fun and really fast, and also there's a lot of laughter involved, and it is actually quite effective. So that's what I do.
Yeah, and laughter is always great in the midst of chaos. you know,
Oh yes.
that's one thing that I've learned. It's better to laugh now. Why wait till later on down the road? Uh, let's do it now and stay in the now. Um, how do you define? Because when I saw the term well-being therapist or integrative well-being therapist, what does that mean? How do you define that?
Well, I think well-being is our birthright, and I think that when we are feeling connected to ourselves, that we are in a place where we can connect with others if we choose to be. But I think that over time, we have really gotten so far away from ourselves because we are continually prompted to look outside of ourselves for the answers. So I really think that when we learn to redirect ourselves back to our inner knowing, our inner being, and we can relax into who we are and feel connected, that we are in the ultimate state of well being.
Right. That's right. And why do you think that so many people today, why do you think so many people today are not so in tune or, as you say, not having that relationship with themselves? What's going on with us as humans? What's going on with that? Why we're not so connected to our own selves?
Well, I think a lot of people don't even understand that that's an option, number one. But I also
Right.
think that society, it's moving so fast, but even, you know, if it wasn't moving so fast, we are continually prompted to look outside for the answer. And that becomes our focus instead of considering ourselves first,
Mm,
forget about foremost, just at
mhm,
all.
mm.
So it's really more about understanding that the basis of every relationship that we go on to have with another is based on the relationship that we're either having or not having with ourselves. And when people begin to even consider that as a possibility and people are able to redirect themselves inward, I think that they can see like a little opening of light that might resonate with them. Because there are so many people that have everything and yet they just are not happy. They're not satisfied. And they're not experiencing having any kind of relationships with others, but really with themselves either.
Yeah,
So,
they have, like you said, they have everything or seemingly have everything materially, but they have absolutely nothing internally, and you talk about contrast,
yes.
uh, contrast, and most people don't even recognize the contrast, or they don't want to, or like you said, life is moving so fast that we don't have time to recognize the contrast, and then we start spiraling downward more and more and more and more and more. Um, and that goes into whole self having the self love. Self
Yeah.
love. How do you define self love?
Um, I think that people misunderstand what that is.
Yeah.
People think all of a sudden that is to be egocentric or self-centered or
Right.
and you see a lot of examples like that on Instagram where,
Oh
people are
gosh.
showing it's all about me, me, me. But that is artificial. Really, self love is when we can relax into who we are and accept who we are and really give ourselves grace and to begin to appreciate who we are for ourselves, not for another.
Mhm.
So I ask people, like, if you would just sit with yourself in the morning or anytime that is good for you to have a few quiet moments and isolate one thing that you can appreciate about yourself. Not something that someone else appreciates about you, but what do you appreciate about you for you?
Mhm.
And I think when people can isolate even one thing, it sets the tone for looking inward.
Yes, looking inward, and it does set the tone. It does set the tone. Um, there was a whole lot of things on your website. Actually, I'm going to bring something up on the screen here, and let me see. Where am I going here? Because I saw this. It was a question that I saw on your website about. Let me pull this up here, and you can tell me if you see it. I pulled this up here. I thought it was a great question about people being in bad situations, and I'll just read it here. If I attracted a bad situation into my experience, and this is a reflection of where I am vibrationally, how do I get myself out of it? How do people get themselves? Well, first, how do people get themselves into bad situations? And then how can we get ourselves out?
Well, I think taking responsibility is really one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves.
Mm,
And it is absolutely the last thing that people want to do for themselves because we live in a victim society where
uh,
we are not rewarded in any way for taking personal responsibility. And I would have to highlight that especially now. So, but even before now. So, the most important thing that we can do for ourselves is to step into our personal power. And doing that, we actually are going to take personal responsibility for everything that we are attracting into our experience.
mhm.
And that's just way too big for people. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
right.
I would say 99% of the time we are projecting how we feel about ourselves onto other people. And that puts a lot of distance between us and us. So, if we could begin to look at every moment as an opportunity to understand where we are with ourselves,
Mhm,
that would be really helpful. So, whatever it is that's going on in your life right now is clearly a very accurate perception of how you're feeling about you.
mhm. Yeah, the
And
feeling is the most important. The feeling. Most people go into how they're thinking versus how they're feeling, um, not knowing that the projection of the feeling is literally what comes back in, like you said, in the mirroring of your reality. You know, whatever it is that you're feeling. So many of us get caught up in overthinking, overthinking, or creating the worry for themselves, thinking about all the things that they don't want to happen.
And then
Um,
what do they get more of?
that's
Everything
right.
they don't want to happen.
Right. That's right. They get more of it, and then it expands more and more and more and more, and then again we create the confusion and the chaos, um, which goes to again. You talk about the reframing or changing the storyline about ourselves, putting a different frame around our picture so it kind of changes the reality. Why is the storyline so important to change versus uh, retelling the story over and over and over again, knowing how you're going to be feeling?
A lot of people cannot make that connection with the story they've been telling themselves, even though it might be really old. I mean, we update everything. We update our phones, we update our computers, but do we ever think to update our story by fact checking and saying, is this even true? Like I've dragged this from childhood and I just have been like
Yes.
incessantly repeating it, but is any of this even true? So, I think that there are wonderful things that can happen for us before we get to reframing. And that really begins in just sitting with ourselves and isolating the mind chatter. which is really interesting because if we stopped and heard how we're speaking to ourselves, we would be horrified. We would not speak to another person the way we speak to ourselves.
Right.
And I think that a lot of that is also what we're thinking about other people. So when we're
Okay.
in judgment, we are projecting. When we're looking outside of ourselves and criticizing someone for what they're wearing, what they're doing, what they're saying, how they're driving, that is a clear and accurate reflection of yourself. And in that moment, you're disconnected. And even if we just made that association and did nothing about it, it would be really helpful
Hmm.
because you'd be laughing all day long.
Right.
And that's okay,
It
and
is.
then the next thing is then to make a choice what to do about it. But just to identify that that's kind of where you're at all day long, I think it's helpful and it's humorous and it's human.
Yeah. Yeah, it is human, and it is good to laugh at yourself at times. Laugh at your quote errors in life, and knowing that you can always correct them.
Yes.
Um, and which goes to this. Uh, you talk about alignment. Alignment, being aligned. Um, when we talk about alignment, people tend to think of, I know about the alignment on my car alignment. Most people take care of their cars better than they take care of themselves. Most people take care of their pets better than they
Yes.
take care of themselves.
Yes. Yes, they
So,
do.
what is alignment? And because I've heard alignment a lot from, I know in your website you mentioned Jerry and Esther Hicks. I know you
Yes, I
referenced
love them.
them,
Yeah.
and I think they're great. I have what, four of their books, and they're great. Um, and they speak of alignment a lot. How do you define alignment, and how can we embrace it more?
Alignment are when your thoughts and your feelings are lined up. So the only thing that we really have any control over at all is how we're feeling, how we're thinking, or how we're thinking, and how we're choosing to feel about how we're thinking. And
Mm,
that's it. We don't have
hmm.
control over anything else, not any other person, not any other situation, nothing. And yet, the thing that we do have control over, people don't really want to step into that place of mastering their thoughts, understanding their thoughts, managing their thoughts. And yet, it is really a superpower because when we can manage our thoughts, then we can manage our feelings, and then nobody affects us.
Hmm.
We are truly in a most connected state of being with ourselves.
Right. Because nobody can control your thoughts except for you.
Yes,
Or they can be influenced, but as far as control, like making you, or some people call it hypnotism, where people feel like they're making you do something that you may not want to do, but you're still doing it anyway. Um, And so we do need to realize that we have 100%, like you said earlier, we have 100% control, and we have to take 100% responsibility.
yes.
Um, Once that's done, or once it's considered and accepted and acknowledged, at least, um, then the transformation starts to take place. Even if it's on a small, minute scale, you'll start to see or feel certain changes or outcomes in your everyday world. Um, and most people never kind of really check into that for themselves because we're so into what everyone else is doing. We see people on TV, we see the politicians, we see all these people that don't even know we exist, but
This
we
is
give so much
true.
energy to them.
And particularly now, it is so important that we take personal responsibility by deciding, based on how we're feeling, what we are wanting to watch in the news.
Mm,
Because there are many different media outlets, And there are many opportunities for us to consider how we're feeling and what we are going to choose to gravitate towards is an understanding for what is happening moment to moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that will set the tone for your entire day.
Yes. Yeah. You mentioned, I saw something you had on your website about, uh, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but uh, gamundo.com. Good news served daily. Good news served daily.
There are so many amazing, very uplifting news sources, and there are also many credible news sources that you can gravitate towards if you have any question about what you're seeing in the headline.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody is questioning what they are seeing in the headlines and
Hmm.
making a choice to go towards the more neutral media sites that is delivering information.
Hmm.
So you got to know what's real and what is fake, and you will determine that based on how you're feeling about what you're reading.
Right. Yeah, I saw something. Actually, I'm going to pull this up real quick. I saw this as one of the news things. I saw this here. It was a report about the heart, and I was looking at it, or I was reading the part of the headline in the story, and in what we do, in what we do as a profession, um, we again going back to how we think versus how we feel. We have no earthly clue of how powerful the human heart is, as opposed to the human brain or mind. Uh, a lot of times we don't realize, we kind of take the heart for granted, but not knowing this is where all of our emotions are. Talk about how powerful the heart is and how we need to possibly consider becoming more in tune with it.
Well, we are intuitive knowers for
Hmm.
ourselves. And people know what intuition is, and they have it all the time. And sometimes they trust themselves, and mostly they don't. The most important thing is to know when you know, even if you don't know how you know.
Check that out.
And when you reflect on that and realize how many times a day you know, and you say to yourself, I have a gut feeling about this, but I'm not going to go with it. Well, that's amazing. And to just understand that you knew. Because I have never heard anyone say, I should not have listened to myself. And I hear people all day long say, I should have listened to
Hmm.
myself.
Yep.
So when you begin to consider yourself as the greatest resource for you, not for others, you don't know anything for others. And it's interesting, the people
Right.
that really don't know anything for themselves are like, know everything for others. That's kind
Right.
of stuff.
Yeah.
but
We want to
but
give everybody advice about themselves, right?
exactly. Right, but you can't follow your own for
Can't
yourself.
follow our own stuff. Yeah,
So,
that
yeah.
is so true. And I've done this. Oh, something told me to do this. You know, what is that something? That something is that voice that's inside all of us that's telling us, damn it, you need to go this way.
And the beauty of that is that you'll always have intuition and it'll get stronger and stronger. And you can make a choice to listen to it or not. But the most important thing is to acknowledge it. And I really applaud people who say, you know what, I intuitively knew this and I chose not to go with it. And I say, that's amazing. You're
Hmm.
taking personal responsibility for something you knew about yourself. That's it.
Yeah,
That's where the power is.
that is where the power is. This is why you talk about pre-paving. Talk about pre-paving. Um, and I saw something about this. Oh gosh, we're about 15 years ago now. I think it was Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's talking about, it was a documentary called "What the Bleep Do We Know," and he talked about creating your day, creating your day. You call it pre-paving. So what is pre-paving, and how can we practice it or present it into our everyday lives?
Well, I think unconsciously, a lot of people do it every day without knowing because they, the night before, are dreading getting up in the morning.
Ah,
They
right.
are dreading getting into their car. They are dreading sitting in traffic. They are dreading going to the office and having to do whatever Monday. I mean, and so they have completely prepaved their day instead of saying, wow, like if what I think about is what I'm going to get, how about if I decide that it is going to be amazing to get up in the morning and
Hmm.
I'm going to sit in my car with coffee and I'm going to sit for an hour and a half and listen to podcasts or return phone calls and I'm going to breeze through traffic and I'm going to get to the office and I'm going to be so excited to see all these I mean, that's pre-paving. And people are like, that sounds so stupid. And I said, "Why don't you try it? Just try it." And it's amazing. Like,
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
I'll hear from them, "Oh my goodness, like this is
Yeah,
like a very different kind of day."
absolutely. And we don't realize it. I mean, you put the quote here, everything you for people to say everything is going my way. That's your quote. Everything is going my way. And when you repeat that over and over and over again, whether it's to yourself or verbally with your tongue, a lot of people say the tongue is like a magic wand. You can whatever you verbalize goes out into the ether and comes back to you in the form of experience. Um, Another thing you mentioned, Monday mornings, people dreading getting up. Statistically, more heart attacks take place
Yeah.
on Monday mornings around this time. Heart attacks because people dread getting up in the morning, having to be in that 405 traffic for 3 hours, commuting, and then 3 hours back. And then when you get home, you're tired and frustrated and angry. And then you have all these timelines of you have to turn in these projects and you're behind. And it just trickles
Yeah.
more and more and more and more.
But catch yourself and laugh because it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
Because truly, it's not about what we're doing, but it is always about how we're feeling about what we're doing, which is why reframing is so helpful. You could take any nightmare situation and reframe it. You
Yeah.
could look at the upside of every situation. You have to do a little retraining of the brain, but it happens pretty fast because you start feeling good and feeling good feels good.
Right. Feeling good feels good. Right. And uh, more people, and the more people are frustrated or irritated with their quote daily happenings. Oh, this keeps happening to me. That keeps happening to me. You're just expanding that energy. You're already knowing how you're going to feel, but like you said, feeling good feels good.
Yeah,
So why not try it? Feeling
yeah.
good feels good. Um, you mentioned something earlier about uh, children, about children and how we kind of take on different, take on different uh, traits, or we kind of absorb certain environments. I'm going to pull this up on the screen because I thought this was great, and I just want to read this. I just want to read this here, this paragraph right here about adolescence. Adolescence is a formative time in our development. It can be a very exciting and often bewildering time. It is a time of self absorbance and a time to question everything. We are introduced to many people, or we are introduced to many new concepts and ideas about how we are supposed, in quotes, supposed to think and behave. This often creates a disconnection with our inner knowing. In other words, sometimes we get stuck in a moment in time. During our adolescence, we create patterns of thought and feeling that we may continue to recreate in our adulthood. some of these patterns may disconnect us from our inner being, inner listening, and inner knowing. And I thought this was great because uh, the adolescent years, I sometimes call them the awkward years. We're kind of learning about ourselves, and not only learning ourselves, but learning who we are, what we like, what we dislike, um, who we want to associate with, um, who we don't want to associate with. Um, for people that are in this age bracket, because I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she's asked me questions about her growing process, because she's starting to have certain feelings about growing up. And more so, and I'm able to kind of explain that the best way that I know how. What do you say to adolescents, whether they see this today or 10 years from now? What do you say to the adolescent or the preteen or someone that's about to be 18 as a legal adult here in America? What do you say to them, and what they can look forward to during their transitioning years from the adolescent to the adult?
It's interesting because I think that if every stage of development, it is so important to give our children agency and support to look inward. And really, 99% of the time, what happens is because people in general, especially parents, don't trust themselves, so they don't trust their children. So they're
Mm,
always telling their children instead of asking their children, like, well, what do you think about that? What do you
right.
think about that? So to redirect them back to them, I think is the greatest gift that parents can give their children. In order to do that, those parents have to trust themselves. And most of people are not trusting themselves. So when you do trust yourself and you ask your child, well, what do you think? Like my kids would say, oh, I want to go to this party on a school night. And I would say, okay, if you think that that's something you'd like to do, I think you should do it. And they'd be like, what? You mean you're not going to tell me don't go? And I'd be like,
Right.
no, you know better for you than I would. What do you think? What do you think? And I think that prompting really is helpful to allow children, adolescents, young adults to look within and find the right answer for themselves in the moment.
Yeah. I think a lot of times as parents, and this is it appears as it's a generational thing where we automatically assume all the worst case scenarios about what the child may do, might do, who they're going to
It's
come
all
in contact
projection,
with.
but okay.
Nope. Right. Right. Exactly. All of that. Um, I've learned just being a parent for the last decade now. Um, Children do have their opinions, and we as parents have to allow them to exercise them, versus sheltering their opinions because we're the adult and we know everything. Versus quite possibly us as adults having our own teachable moments through our children.
Exactly. Children can teach us a lot, but we
Yes.
really do parent through fear. And that I think is a tremendous problem, especially today, because if the choice for children is to either absorb what your parents told you or to look outside of yourself for direction, you're screwed.
Mm, mm, mhm. Right. And this is why you see a lot of children rebel. I mean, it's like we it's almost like we're it's almost like we're already assuming that they're going to be this way. So now we have to amp up our parenting stuff, and don't go here, don't go there, stay in your room. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't go there, you can't do this. And if the child, just like in nature, I was watching on that Good News Served Daily, they had this a mother raccoon trying to teach her baby raccoon how to climb the tree and all that, and the 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 mother was patient and not getting irritated and, well, why haven't you done this yet? We have to be more patient with our, or it's suggested that we be more patient, or something to at least consider. Um, because a lot of parents don't like to be told, "Oh, you can't tell me what to do with my children." That attitude will again create rebellion.
Well, yes, and it's not healthy rebellion. So when I was growing up, my parents were very allowing and they really gave me nothing to push against, which was absolutely wonderful.
Hmm.
And so I was always able to look within and consider myself first and foremost. But I think that when we are the most allowing of others is when we trust ourselves the most. So if we could come to a place where we would begin to trust who we are and where we are with ourselves, then we would extend that same courtesy to other people, including our children, which would be a very lovely way to connect with yourself, connect with your children, and connect with other people.
Hmm.
Kind of a
Yeah,
win-win-win.
it teaches them better social skills, and it creates for a better communication atmosphere between the child and the parent. The child won't be so hesitant or apprehensive about coming to their parents about what happened at school today, or um, you know uh, anything. If it's a girl, I've had my cycle for the first time. How do I embrace that? um, just all these things that many children don't feel comfortable coming to their parents about, because of the interaction that's been already set forth generation after generation, and then the children go seek the information elsewhere in all
Yes.
the quote wrong places most of the time.
Well,
um, so yeah, go ahead.
yes, I just think that once again that, children are very intuitive.
Yeah.
And a child would really be able to seek out information based on what feels best for them if we would allow them to.
Hmm.
And the other wonderful thing my parents did is that they never talked about a consequence. They just talked about an outcome. So we'd make a decision and then we'd have an outcome and then we'd make the next decision based on the outcome. But it was our outcome. It wasn't them. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, we couldn't blame them because we made our own decision. So if I went to a party and the next day I had school and I failed a test, I couldn't really blame my parents. I had to take responsibility and be like, wow, that was a choice that maybe I would make differently next. And it just feels better. It reinforces a child, an adolescent, a young adult to trust themselves, and also the next time to make a different choice if the outcome wasn't what they wanted it to be.
Yeah, outcome versus consequence. I like that.
Yes.
Outcome versus consequence, because as parents, we tend to always go to the negative first. The consequences. If this happens, that's going to happen.
Right. And then
Um,
we're afraid to even take the chance
it
of
creates
making a
fear.
decision.
Yeah, it creates fear. It creates fear, and then we're looking over our shoulders every 5 minutes, wondering, oh, is this gonna happen? Because my parents told me that there's gonna be consequences if you do this. So that's wow. Yeah, that is very. I like that. I like that. Outcome over consequence. Outcome over consequence. Let's go to your book here. You have a book. It's called "The Ever Loving Essence of You," and you co-wrote this with Lauren Targ. Um,
Yes.
how did you come up with the what, or well, what brought you two together to write the book, and how did you come up with the book title?
So we are childhood friends and we
Okay.
grew up together and she's awesome. She So she knew my family and my mom and myself well. When I was growing up, I was very connected to myself and did not have a connection with my mom. And I really spent my whole life trying to figure out, like, Like, how could this be? Here I am so connected to me, and yet like this amazing force of nature, this woman, like I can't even like get her attention.
Mm.
So anyway, I really had a deep understanding of um, the idea that she could not connect with me because she just wasn't connected to herself. And that was like, um, in so many ways, it was such a blessing. She was very ill, and I sat with her the last several days of her life, and and I really thought like through those days because we were so connected. I was like, wow, this is like the beginning of our mother and daughter relationship. How exciting! Even though I'm like like 50 some years old,
All right.
and then she transitioned, and it really felt like, "Oh my goodness, like, this is so important." Like, we cannot connect deeply with another if we're not connected with ourselves. So, yeah, so, very shortly after she transitioned, I sat down with Lauren and we wrote this book in a weekend.
Oh, wow.
It just
Wow.
flowed through. It
Poured
was
out of you,
real.
huh?
That was it. It was just, and it's old. It's like 13, 14 years old, but it's timeless. I read
Yeah, I
it
saw
all the
that. I
time.
saw, I guess you
Yeah,
the first, well, I don't know if it's the only edition, but I guess it
yeah,
was published back in 2010.
yeah.
So it's been quite a
It,
while,
yes,
and
and
it's
yet
kinda stood the test of time so
it
far.
surely has. It really has. So, and it's really easy to read. There's no psychobabble in there. It's a very loving book. It feels good. So, yeah, and it has some really good tips and tricks for reconnecting if you're feeling disconnected. So,
Yeah, I like the part in your one of your chapters you were talking about eating the ice cream,
oh yeah.
and then you mentioned instead of going to the hard spirit liquor, go to the wine instead.
Well, I
Go to the
really do
wine.
believe that if you're in alignment with whatever it is that you're doing before, during, and after, nothing can be harmful for you or to you.
Yes.
But I don't think people take the time to really, you know, intentionally make a decision about if they want to have that drink when they get home from a place of feeling good. They just go to it because they assume they feel not good and this is going to help them feel good. And what happens? They don't feel good. But from a place of feeling good, yeah, drink it, eat it,
Yes.
have sex, whatever, but you gotta
Yes.
feel good first. So
Right. When I do my solo shows, I always, and people that have watched me, they know I have my glass of wine with me. Pomegranate wine. And it's great. And I feel good too in the moment.
yeah,
Which is great. So I'm glad you made that distinction because
yes,
some people will eat the ice cream and then 5 minutes later they're feeling guilty.
yes.
And you also mentioned something about the quote guilty pleasure and why that type of language should kind of be eliminated. Because if something is pleasurable, what the hell are you feeling guilty about it for?
It's a great question, right?
I mean, just if the ice cream is good and I love chocolate ice cream and I want to put the more chocolate syrup on it, I'm gonna feel good. Why? Because it just metabolizes better.
Yes, but to eat the ice cream in order to feel good, therein lies the problem.
Yeah. To feel good. Right. Right.
Yes.
Right.
So if we use these quote unquote guilty pleasures as a way to make ourselves feel better, it doesn't work. And we don't understand why. But because we need to indulge from a place of already feeling good, to
Right.
accentuate the already feeling good place of being.
Right. And so then the ice cream you won't feel guilty about it because
No.
you're already feeling good anyway. So you're just going to enhance it
Yes.
versus
Yes.
what most people do. They're
Yes.
sad and down on themselves. And
Yes.
so they eat because they feel that way, thinking that
Yes.
now we're talking about the whole drug part of it. Now you're using it or you're using it as something that will um, if you're kind of running from something or if you're trying to escape from something, If you're feeling sour, you want something sweet in the moment.
That's right. It's like eating your feelings. But the
Eating your
problem with
feelings,
that
right.
is when you're done eating your feelings, you just feel worse.
Right. That's right. You feel worse. And then the next thing you know, that whole pint of ice cream is gone. Ah, it just disappeared.
And you wasted the enjoyment.
Right. Right. The enjoyment part of it, because you didn't already feel good before
Right.
you took that first scoop.
Yep.
Which is great. So I'm glad you brought that aspect of it, and to differentiate the two, because when it comes to food, people do use food as their drug of choice.
And alcohol and sex.
Alcohol, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Sex
And but
too, yes.
the problem is it doesn't work. If it does work, I would say keep doing it, but it's not working.
There's no amount of sex on the planet, as great as it is. Um, you know, one from one man to a woman. I mean, no matter how great it feels in the moment, if you're having discrepancies, um, no amount of that type of pleasure is going to fix it.
Right. So it once again, the rule is if you can feel good before, during, and after, you're in alignment and go for it.
Hmm.
That's it.
Yeah, and just go for it. I just have a few more things here. Your well-being, and you've traveled and gone to different places around the world to gain access to other spiritual practices. What is your definition of spirituality?
I think it's really different for everyone. I don't know. It's
Okay.
confusing. I think it's kind of confusing,
Yeah.
but I think that when you understand for yourself what you want spiritualities to feel like, you will identify a source that feels like that for you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because there's so many different definitions of spirituality.
Yeah, and I guess it could be uh, defined differently for everyone. We
Yes.
all have a spirit. I always like to tell people, because we live, especially here in America, we have so many quote religious practices. Um, but I like to tell people that, you know, not everyone belongs to a quote religion or
No.
religious practice, but we all have a spirit, or
Yes.
we all have an essence,
Yes.
or a vibration or a frequency that belongs to us,
Yes.
that
Yes.
belongs to us. And however we choose to define it, that's what will be reflected throughout the life journey. Is that accurate?
I think so. I really think life is a very personal journey, very personal. And I do not think that people should share what they're doing with themselves, with other people, until they can walk the talk. And then they won't have to say anything because their actions will be the living, breathing example of what's
Yes.
possible. The minute
Yeah.
you tell someone what you're doing, they're going to talk you out of it. They're going to
Right.
tell you how that's not what you should be doing. You should be doing something else.
Yes. Right. And those are the
So,
people that don't let anyone steal your dreams. You have the dream thieves, the dream stealers. you know. So yeah, you definitely want to keep your ambitions and your endeavors to yourself. Unless it's somebody like you co-wrote with Lauren. I'm pretty sure you could feel like you can confide in her with certain things about your life journey, but you can't just do that with anybody just willy-nilly.
well, you can. And if it's something really good and really positive, then be sure that those people really will have no interest in spending time with you.
Right. That's right.
Because
That's
if you're
right.
not a victim and you don't have a story to tell, people really, I don't know, they are not interested. So you might find your circle to be a little smaller the happier you get, but It feels really good to feel happy all the time, no matter how small your circle is.
It is. And, a lot of times having a smaller circle is better. And that way you don't have to kind of venture out. You can kind of keep the space close and the energy close too, because most of the time, people that are in the same energy space, they're typically going in that same direction. The old saying, birds of the feather flock together. But in most cases, that's true. If people are on the same wave or the same vibe, then yeah, we can kind of interact and communicate because we know there's no conflict or we know there's no counter intention amongst the other participants.
So you will do much more collaborating and much less competing. And that
Right.
feels so much better.
Yeah, because so many people are in competition, especially in the mainstream. That's all you hear about: competition. How we can do better than this person, how we can do better than that person. Well, how about we kind of compete with ourselves, and how can we make ourselves better? How can
There
we
you
be better
go.
tomorrow? How can we be better next week? How can we be better next year
And how can we be better for ourselves?
for ourselves?
Yes.
Yeah, for ourselves. Because again, you, you feeling good feels good.
Yes, it does.
Feeling good feels good. In the last few minutes, on your website, you have something called the Quickie. How does that work?
I love it. This is my most favorite service that I offer. I
Quickie. I was
love
like,
it.
wow, the Quickie. I like that. So,
It's a
explain that.
lovely first of all, it's a lovely texting option.
Yeah,
That's what the Quickie is. And I developed this before COVID. It was, like, brilliant because during COVID, it was perfect.
yeah,
But, it's the opportunity to, buy a block of time, and then people text with me, and I text back with them. And the reason that I love this so much is that people over time really begin to understand that they knew all the answers for themselves anyway. I was just the conduit. And I really appreciate when people can step into the space where they knew that they knew.
they knew that they knew.
Yes. And
Yeah,
now they know that they know.
right. Because at first you don't know what you don't know, but at the same time, we do know. Everything is
Exactly.
already within us.
Yes, that's right.
It's
So,
already there. It's
yes.
been there.
Yes, and it also is a wonderful opportunity to become more emotionally intelligent because I find that when people text, they don't go on and on and on and on and on. It's more of a condensed version of whatever it is that's going on. And I think that's really helpful in terms of people being able to think through a problem. Because oftentimes we think about something and I have to say, especially women, we take it on and it becomes like has a life of its own.
Hmm.
At that point, it's very difficult to untangle it and to begin to move forward. But when you're in a place of being emotionally intelligent, I think that that is very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Emotional intelligence. Again, it's all going back to the inner you that's always been there, waiting for you to activate it. It's like, hello, we've already been here waiting for the last 10, 15, 20 years. Um, we want you to have the best in life, but you have to want it for yourself first.
Yeah.
so yeah, check that out. In the last few minutes, first, tell us where we can find you and how people can get in contact with you.
So I have a website. It's www.jamie-lerner. And I try to put something positive on Facebook every day. I have totally failed on Instagram, and I'm okay with that. I just couldn't. I tried so hard, and at a certain point, I'm just like, this is
Yeah,
just
yeah,
not
yeah,
for me. So that's really it. But I have, tons of podcasts, and this podcast will be on the website. There's so much good information there. If I never even hear from you, I'm just so happy that people will go and take whatever little nuggets from the website that they can. And I am in the process of redeveloping my resource page because I have so many amazing resources that I use every single day that I would love people to be able to tap into.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for everyone watching, yeah, go to her website. um, I got a lot of information out of it. So yeah, so thank you for that. Last question, and you can answer it any way that you feel comes to you first. What does life mean to you?
For me, it's living moment to moment. There's nothing more than just one moment and the next moment and the next moment. And when we begin from our most connected place to understand that, we take like a big deep breath and we're able to really be present and allow the moments to unfold.
Hmm, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, and again, those kind of questions can go in varying directions. So I'm glad you answered it that way. Uh, Jamie, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to come on the Kinetic Hour and grace the stage with all of your knowledge and wisdom. And come back, come back. I'd
Thank
love to
you
have
for
you back.
inviting me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to have you back because again, there's so many other. I mean, we just kind of touched on a little bit of everything, but I'd love to go kind of deep diving into some of these elements a little deeper, and kind of pick your brain a little bit more. So definitely come back. Glad to have you, and for all of you watching and listening, go to Jamie's website, and I'll have all that up in post production. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Again, there's 1,000 different podcasts that you can listen to. So thank you for tuning in to the Kinetic Hour, and thank you to Jamie Lerner. Her book, she co-authored her book. Make sure you check it out. It's called The Ever Loving Essence of You. Create a long-term connection or connected relationship with yourself. So Jamie, thank you. And to everyone else, thank you so much. And until next time.